This is it, your final challenge problem. So here it is labeled as 7.3, the vector lists challenge. So do pay close attention because I have a verbal clue for you here that will help you avoid maddening frustration, and actually will help set you up moving forward as far as file operations go in essentially the best, most usable, practical way to think about file operations that you can take with you throughout your career. So one note here at the very beginning, make sure that you include the files there with your Replit link. I know everything is all integrated into Replit, but if you do not have them there, if you have not tested them there, file operations are a big portion of what you're going to need to be able to do this correctly. So make sure that those are there and sorted before you submit your link to me. So one of the things we rely on our machines, our computers, our data systems to do is essentially store information. One of the things that you and I as consumers rely on that stored information to do is to create lists. That's why we have Google Keep or OneNote or iCloud Notes, I suppose, if you are on an iPhone, etc. It is endearingly practical and amazingly useful to be able to have a list for things. If you think about a list, this is the use that we would expect for that. We would need to be able to add items to the list. We would need to be able to subtract items from the list. We would need to be able to view our list. Think of those as separate functions. Add items, delete items, view items. So that's one of the verbal hints here, is separate out all of your tasks, because cramming them together in one ultra mega mega function is just going to frankly lead to heartache and tears. So you are going to store a collection of 3 lists. They are here. They are grocery, hardware store, and chores. If you come up with alternative names for those, that is fine. Your list manager will minimally hit the following things, but I'll tell you, it falls short without you actually being cognizant of what happens in the order of operations here for what you need to get a list done. So first and foremost, this has to be menu driven. There are 10 points allocated out of the 110 for that. We will need a menu to be able to drive the program in general. Are you starting? Are you stopping? Etc. For the user to select a list, for the user to select adding or removing parts from a list, to return to the main menu, etc. Everything should be nice and formatted there with a menu. Next, you're going to need functions, 30 points. A big portion of what this is built around is modular design. If you think about the reason for modular design, it's because, and here's 2, and there's going to be a third bonus tip now that I think about it, but this is bonus tip number 2, is if you think about the modular design, a good module does not care what file you send it. A good module can receive a file, do work on a file, or alternatively, here's the other hint, instead of working on files, work on a vector and return the work from that vector without having for it to be named. So just think about how many functions you're going to need, and probably you only need about a third as many of those as you start off with. You'll need minimally a function to enter the items to a list, minimally a function to delete items from a list, and a function to serve as the display for your menus. 10 points here are going for file operations. The point value lets you know a little bit about when and where these should be done. It's only 10 points. So one file for each. Believe me, do yourself a favor and have one file for each: the grocery, the hardware, and the chores. Loops, 20 points. Clearly, we're going to have to do this more and more and more. You should see what my hardware store list looks like now that we're at the end of the semester. And I may or may not have an opportunity to do all the stuff that, having destroyed my arm and taken all this time with school stuff, has taken me away from doing. So my honey-do list is like encyclopedic by this time. Make sure that your user can add as many points as many items as is necessary. Make sure that they can delete as many items as is necessary. Make sure that they can move in between lists and menus and everything as many times as they want. It is not the job of the developer to let the user know how many operations they can undertake. It's the job of the developer to allow the user to undertake as many iterations as they damn well please and then leave the program. You are going to need vectors for 20 points to be able to do this. What I will tell you is there is a hint here in the vector description that lets you know the order in which it is you should be dealing with your data. So read items from the files into your vectors. From there, you can add items to your lists. From there, you can delete items from your list. From there, you can display items from your list. And from there, you can save out the items from your vectors to the file. Now, remember, when is it that you should be influencing these file operations? At the beginning and the end of your program. So think about that whole last paragraph and let that guide you as to how the whole program should be built. For the last 20 points, we are focusing here on good user design. So make sure I know what's going on. I am not going to do what I have done on many of your exercises in the past, which is fumble around and try and figure stuff out. If it's not clear to me from the get-go what it is that I need to do to add an item, to change a menu, to delete an item, to save a file, to do whatever, I am not going to give you the benefit of the doubt on this. This is our last project. By now, I have commented numerous times in your project saying, I need better guidance on how to be able to interact with your program. Make it easier on the user to be able to interact with a program. Think about the kinds of selection structures that you can use to help influence the ease with which it is that a user can interact with a program. The one you almost never choose to use is the one that's going to make this easier. So there you go. 3 bonus tips here for how to potentially successfully complete your vector list challenge, the final challenge here for CIS276, the most meaningful, the biggest, and the one that you should start on right away. So have at it.